welcome to another video. Today, we are watching Most Loved versus Most Hated Indie Game Studios. I am an indie game consumer. I have so many indie games. I spend so much time playing indie games like an absolute maniac. So I hope I see some of my favorites here. If you guys want to join us and watch these reactions live, you should come over to Twitch, and I also stream games on YouTube. And if you're watching this on the month of October 2025, we are doing a special Halloween event where I play games and read creepypasta and do cool horror-related stuff all month. So you should definitely join this because it's really cool. So yeah, let's go.
Today's video is brought to you by War Thunder. Indie game studios have come out with some of the most innovative and awesome games over the last few years, and it's always awesome to see how a small team of developers can form a community of millions of fans.
Hollow Knight, for example. I am still shocked, by the way, that Hollow Knight was made by 3 people. I still cannot believe it. It's so insane.
So we're gonna go over 5 of the most loved indie game studios that are out there that basically have 0 haters and compare them to some of the most disliked ones in the industry. Starting off with Relogic, who's the studio behind the sandbox adventure game called Terraria.
I have played Terraria, but like only a little bit. I know that a lot of people like really like it, and I might get people wanting to murder me for that, but I tried it a little bit and I didn't like it too much. I prefer Minecraft because I feel like Minecraft is more cozy. Terraria kind of feels like a very like boss focused game. It's much more focused on the combat, and when I'm playing a game like that, I usually like building and doing like cute and cozy stuff, so it's not that much my style, you know?
Which a lot of people like to refer to as 2D Minecraft, but the reality is that the 2 games actually just couldn't be more different. Despite the fact that both of them are on the list of the best-selling games of all times, I think one of the main reasons why people love Relogic so much is because despite the fact that Terraria has sold so many copies and it has over 1 million overwhelmingly positive
oh my god, it's from 2011, holy frick.
Reviews on Steam, they haven't caved in, they haven't sold out to a larger company like how Mojang got acquired by Microsoft. So Relogic has actually managed to maintain that indie spirit throughout all these years.
And they still update the game, right? I usually only see this like with indie developers. It's not that common with AAA developers, but like a lot of indie developers will like keep updating their games and like adding new content even after years that the game has come out, and I think that that's awesome.
Their already great reputation with the fans at an even better spot because it reinforces the idea that they're focused on keeping the player base happy, and with how much free content they've added throughout the years, they have like more than enough reasons to justify, in the very least, increase the sales price of the base game. But because they want to be as consumer friendly as possible, Terraria's always been available for just under $10.
Honestly, even though the game is not my style a lot, I still think it's like a cool game, and like the developers seem pretty cool. Even though I don't enjoy the game that much, I do find it really awesome. Like
a running joke inside the Terraria community, because every time Relogic releases an update for the game, they always announce it as being the final update that Terraria will ever get.
Okay guys, I promise I won't do it anymore. Actually, look what I got for you now. It's free. Okay, but this is the last one. Actually.
Update 1.1 all the way back in 2011, but these developers are just way too obsessed with their game and they just keep coming back for more. So you take the passionate developers, you add transparency towards the community, and put that into one of the best-selling games of all time, and there's like no question as to why Relogic is one of the most loved indie game studios that's out there. Which is unfortunately the opposite of what you can say about Battlestate Games, which some people consider to be a worse company than Ubisoft themselves.
Jesus, okay. I was like, I have never heard of them before. Worse than Ubisoft is definitely a huge title to take. God damn.
Now, Battlestate Games are the developers behind the king in the extraction shooter genre Escape from Tarkov.
I've heard a lot from this game, but I never actually played it. I have no idea what this game is about.
It's just surprising how they've managed to stay on top for so long against all the competition,
it looks really
considering
good.
all the controversies surrounding the game's development. So Escape from Tarkov, just to name a few things, has had a laundry list of bugs that throughout the years has never been fixed and only keeps getting worse. There's a rampant cheating problem in the game, which makes the extraction shooter genre in specific almost completely unplayable because of the way the games are designed. And there's also the fact that Battlestate Games hasn't really been open with the community about what the future roadmap for Escape from Tarkov is.
Bro, I think I remember seeing a video of Charlie where he was talking about this game. Apparently they did like some sort of monetization tactic that was like really, really scummy and nasty, and the fan base was like really mad about it, but I don't remember what it was anymore.
The game's been in an open beta stage for over 6 years at this point, and there's still no date
6
for a
years?
full release. So a lot of people are just speculating that they have really no idea what they're doing with the game. They have no idea what they want to do with the future of the game either. Battlestate Games has also had one of the worst community interactions I've ever seen in any game studio, with the developers being pretty combative with some of the players on social media, especially if we're talking about the biggest controversy that went down when they announced the unheard edition of Escape from Tarkov, which got over 45,000 dislikes versus just 5,000 likes when the trailer
45,000. Wow, people were really not happy about that shit. Oh my god.
first dropped. And Battlestate Games just completely ruined the reputation with how they handled the situation, because the Unheard Edition was a bundle priced at $250 that out of all the things that they were advertising, the main thing that they were promising was early access to an experimental PvE mode. $250 for a video game that's still in beta, that sounds absolutely wild.
Oh my, I didn't even think about that. How do you have a game that is in beta for 6 years and you have the balls to charge people $250? That's insane.
Wilder when you find out that the people who had previously bought the Edge of Darkness edition to support the game's development all the way back in 2017 were not given access to the PvE mode, despite the fact that the original promises for the EOD players was free access to all future DLCs from Escape from Tarkov.
This is definitely the thing that I heard Charlie talking about. I remember now.
Like they got ripped off here, and this caused a huge wave of negativity from the community, to the point where Battlestate Games was basically forced to cave in. But at that point, Battlestate Games had just completely ruined their reputation with the community.
Okay, so the thing that he was saying before about them being like really combatant with a fan base, I feel like that's one of the worst things that any video game company can do. I feel like that's something that even you do like as a VTuber and streamer. There's two options that you have. It's either ignore it if it's not like actually valid criticism, or if it is valid criticism, then you just need to fix it. Don't whine about it. Don't make up excuses for your terrible choices. Just fix it. Don't like start arguing with your fan base about it. That's like one of the stupidest things that you can do.
Now let's talk about Massive Monster, which is one of those dev studios that gained a cult following on social media by making a game that's about gaining a cult following. They're the geniuses behind Cult of the Lamb, which is easily a lot of people's favorite game.
I played this game last year on stream. I never beat it on stream because honestly, I was like way too lazy. It is one of those games that people can get very annoying when you play it, you know? But I beat the game off stream. When I was playing it, I legitimately got addicted. I would wake up, I would play Cult of the Lamb for 10 straight hours. I would go to bed, I would wake up, I would play Cult of the Lamb for 10 straight hours, and I would repeat. I couldn't stop playing. I was so addicted.
Roguelite that takes elements from so many different games like The Binding of Isaac, Stardew Valley, Slay the Spire, and just mashes them together in the best way possible.
And it's
Massive
so
Monster somehow
cute.
made a game that stands on the perfect sweet spot between the characters being all adorable and funny, you know, like if you were playing Animal Crossing, but also remembering that it's a game about worshipping demonic creatures and committing sacrifice.
It's really cool because it has a bunch of different aspects. I'm a cozy gamer. I'm a bit of a cozy gamer, you know? Like, I really like playing games that are like cute and like a managing thing. And so it has that. You can like manage your own base. You can put everything together. You can interact with your cult members. You can pick different perks and stuff. But there's also the thing that pleases my hardcore gamer side, which is the really hard bosses and enemies that you have to kill. And it's just like, it's so satisfying to play. I really love this game.
So Cult of the Lamb came out all the way back in 2022, and over the years, Massive Monster has been working non-stop with the game by adding waves of free major content updates, a few paid DLCs too. My favorite one, and the reason I started playing Cult of the Lamb in the first place, was the fact that they added the Unholy Alliance update, which has a co-op feature, and I'm just happy, I'm just a sucker for couch co-op games. It also helps that the developers themselves are super active on social media.
And I think they're also coming up with like a huge, massive, content upgrade, like a ice one. I might play it again for that because it was really cool.
The Lamb Twitter X account is one that's always popping up on my timeline, whether they're replying to fans or interacting with them, or just retweeting fan art. And maybe it's not so obvious for some other AAA studios that are out there, but if you want to be loved and recognized by your game's community, then you gotta be there interacting with them, and just sharing the love that other people have for the game that you've made. So overall, Massive Monster is just one of those very...
If you want people to care about you, you have to show that you care about them first. That's like the number one rule to any sort of game company, any sort of content creator. If you want people to care about you and the stuff that you're making, you need to show that you care about them first. Interact with your community, treat them well. Just treat your community and the people that like your stuff well. That's all you have to do. It's not that hard.
Few studios that practically have zero haters. But if you want to talk about an indie studio that practically has only haters, then we have to talk about Nicalis, that had reports of their work environment being so hostile that it caused the developer of The Binding of Isaac to basically cut ties with them. So Nicalis is a company that focused not only on developing indie games themselves, but also helping other
It's crazy how I've never heard of the ones that are hated. Like, so far, I have never heard of either of those.
Developers port their existing games into multiple consoles. The studio was part of an investigation done a few years back where the CEO was exposed for not only being exploitative and abusive towards his employees, but also making a lot of racist comments in the office. A few of the Skype messages got leaked online, and honestly speaking,
oh my god. It's a little bit baffling to me that he had the balls to say this in a professional environment and think he was just gonna get away. I mean, I guess a lot of people get away with it, but holy shit, this is insane.
Going through some of these messages, it's surprising anybody would want to keep working for this company. But that Skype chat log was looking like your typical Twitter timeline, honestly. And if that wasn't enough reasons to hate Nicalis, well, remember how they were in the business of porting video games? Well, they've also been called out for releasing ports for games that kind of just felt rushed and riddled with so many bugs that they really didn't feel like they were doing the original games any justice. Like, the biggest example in this case was when the original Cave Story was ported into the Nintendo Wii. Like, I never got the chance to play that version, but from what I hear, it's an absolute disaster. And they've also destroyed any opportunity they've ever had to build a proper community, since they've been known to request DMCA takedowns of fan-made Cave Story.
Oh my god, every time! It's like they have something inside of them that makes it impossible for them to not do stupid-ass things with copyright. People making content about your game is like literally free marketing. I remember that a couple of years ago, there was a company that I am thinking it's a really big and famous company, but I'm not gonna say it for sure because I don't know if I'm right. But basically, they would DMCA gameplay videos of their game. You're just getting rid of free marketing. Those people are like helping your game get seen by other people. Like, there's so many games that I have bought because I saw YouTubers and streamers playing it. And these people, oh god, this is so dumb. This is so dumb.
Projects, despite the fact that Cave Story itself was originally released as a freeware by a Japanese indie developer called Pixel. But with so many reasons to hate Nicalis as a company, well, it's no surprise that people just outright refuse to buy anything if it has their name attached to it. Which is something that we can't really say about this next studio called Team Cherry. Now, Team Cherry is a group of just like 3 people that have made one of the best Metroidvania games out there called Hollow Knight. And Hollow Knight was such a massive success that it created one of the most hardcore fan bases you'll ever see in any gaming community.
Me having played the game for the first time like 2 months ago and already being obsessed with it.
Because the game is fun, yeah, but it also has a beautiful artwork that's all been hand-drawn, and the way Team Cherry has been able to craft an atmosphere to make it seem all dark and mysterious and make it feel like you're almost playing a...
It's really cool because like some places in the game are very dark. There's also places that are so cozy. Green Path is so cozy, and Queen's Garden also kind of like, if you ignore the things that are constantly trying to kill you, it's like such a nice environment that is like so relaxing and pretty, you know? Nako, biggest Team Cherry glazer? Yep, I will glaze them for the rest of my life. They have made me a loyal cult follower.
Souls game where you're trying to piece together all the lore with all the hints that the game drops. It's just a masterpiece, honestly. However, Team Cherry hasn't been without controversy though, because unfortunately there's been a lot of members of the community that, yeah, they are absolutely obsessed with Hollow Knight, but they're also kind of frustrated with how quiet Team Cherry has been about the development of their next...
I think this video is a little bit old. We got it already!
Hollow Knight Silksong, which was announced over 5 years ago at this point, and despite the fact that it's currently the most wishlisted game on Steam, Steam, well,
Really?
there's barely been any
Oh my
information
God.
regarding it. So every time there's a major gaming event like E3 or Nintendo Direct or something like that, there's always that same feeling of disappointment when there's no mention of Hollow Knight Silk.
Bro, I remember that before I even like played Hollow Knight and became a fan. So you know those like watch parties that streamers will do whenever there's like a new game event where they're announcing a bunch of games, and like some streamers will do watch parties of that? I would watch it sometimes, and I swear to God, the chat the whole time, both of the streamer and the original like stream of the event, was always like, Silk Song announcing, Silk Song announcing, let's go, can we get Silk Song please? Every single time. When it was dropped, everyone was shocked. I was too. I was like on YouTube just browsing, and then all of a sudden, boom, Hollow Knight Silk Song jump scare. And then they were just like, well, we're gonna release the game in 2 weeks, by the way. And I was like, what the f do you mean you're releasing in 2 weeks? I haven't played the first game yet!
Song. But I will say that to their defense, there is a good reason for that, because Team Cherry, like I mentioned, is literally just 3 people, and because they know how passionate and driven their fan base is, and how much they appreciate their work on Hollow Knight, well, they've mentioned in the past that even just making devlogs could set them back for weeks in development, so they've chosen to just, you know, keep their heads down, work in silence, so they can come out with a properly made game, instead of just trying to rush the release.
I mean, they did like put a lot of effort, and they added like so much stuff. There's always so much content in their games that I feel like it's reasonable.
Hollow Knight Silk Song, because at the end of the day, they just really want to do well with their fans.
It's one of those cases where instead of being like most AAA companies and just rushing every single project so that they can get the game out as fast as possible and then just patch it, like patch all of the bugs, Fallout 76. Instead of doing that, they took 7 years, but they delivered a really good product, you know? I feel like that's better.
Sure, they just don't want to end up like Fntastic, which was a dev studio that had one of the most dramatic crashes in recent gaming history. They were the team behind the disaster called The Day Before that was supposed to—
I think I've heard about this one as well. Bro, why is it always a shooter game? 2 out of the 3 bad companies already have been shooter games. I feel like they might be cursed.
open world survival MMO game that, based off the trailers and what the studio was promising, it was supposed to be like The Last of Us combined with The Division. But the problem was that all that Fntastic was showing regarding the game were all these like super high quality cinematic trailers that got a bunch of people to wishlist the game on Steam, so everybody was hyped.
Okay, I'm noticing a pattern. Before I became a VTuber, I was going to school for programming, right? I was studying programming, and I wanted to be either like a generic software engineer or a game dev. Game dev is unlikely though, because if you know anything about the programming industry, you know that they're not paid very well. And I feel like everybody that has ever wanted to make a video game in their life has already thought like, oh my god, I'm gonna make the new Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm gonna make the new Cyberpunk, I'm gonna make the next GTA all by myself. No, you're not. You're gonna make a jumper game, like a 3D jumper game on Unit while you're following a tutorial, and it's gonna crash and burn and it's gonna be super buggy. You're not gonna make the new GTA by yourself. A lot of companies and people are like very delusional in the way that they think they can achieve AAA results without a AAA budget or a AAA team. But the real problem is when they set up those expectations for other people as well, and then they can't deliver onto it. There's nothing wrong with doing a smaller indie game. There's a lot of things wrong with promising something for a lot of people, taking their money, and then not being able to give them what you promised them before, so.
But they never really showed any gameplay. So after going through months and months of delays in development and them not really talking much about the game, and also the fact that the game was delisted on Steam over a copyright issue with the name,
ambition is a bitch. It literally stopped me from releasing anything. Feels bad, man. I get it, honestly. Like, that's a problem that even I feel like I fall into as, like, a small indie VTuber, is I have some projects sometimes that are just not realistic. Because, like, it's only now that I actually got one person to help me. Like, over a year of being a VTuber, I got the first person to help me, which is my editor. Like, I have one person on my team, is like me and the editor, technically. I keep like having all of these great ideas, you know, but there's only so much that you can do as a single person with no money. So I do feel the pain of these developers wanting to do like some really cool stuff but not being able to do it. You have to be realistic when you're like taking a bunch of people's monies for stuff, you know?
Everybody started calling The Day Before a scam that was never going to be released. But Fntastic eventually did manage to release the game, by the way, but the people who bought it still got scammed in the end, because once they booted up The Day Before, they They realized that it wasn't really an open world MMO game like how it was advertised, but it was actually an extraction shooter with a pretty empty environment that was just filled with a bunch of flipped assets.
Okay, I think I'm seeing the pattern here. There's already been 2 extraction shooters.
On the zombies was so horrible that it made the whole thing feel like it was more like a tech demo than anything else.
Are they gonna
Like, it was
move?
nothing more than a classic bait and switch at the end of the day that made Fntastic go from having one of the most top wish-listed games on Steam to being one of the most hated indie studios of its time. They also apparently had horrible business practices because it came out way later that a lot of the development was actually being made by unpaid volunteers that were being exploited in order to get free labor.
Oh my god, this is Yanderedev all over again. I don't know if he's gonna mention Yanderedev later on, probably not. But when I was a kid is when I first saw Yanderedev. When it was like popping off, like Yandere Sim was popping off with a bunch of YouTubers playing it, like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, you know. I became a huge fan of that game and I so badly wanted to play it, and it was like never released. It sucks when you get super hyped up for a game and then it turns out to just be a scam. The other day, Mujin made a video about a game called Puff Pals. It's so annoying because you create this expectation for months as a consumer. Not only did you get scammed and lose money, but you also are never gonna get that cool ass thing that you were so expecting for it. It's really lame.
Exchange for cool rewards like participation certificates and free codes.
God.
Listen, this whole disaster with the day before in Fntastic was so bad that after 4 days of the day before being launched in December of 2023, Fntastic came out with a statement announcing that they were shutting down the studio and that their game had failed financially. And looking back, honestly, they probably should have taken a page from Supergiant Games on how to make a successful indie release, because when it comes to storytelling and captivating visuals and, you know, just having that sweet sauce that gets the player hooked, it's really hard to compete with Supergiant Games. That's a developer behind the titles like Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, which are, you know, reputable games by themselves, but the game series that turned Supergiant Games into...
Okay! I was like, those games look vaguely familiar. I wonder if I know any of their... I know, yep.
The viral sensation that it is
now.
today has got to be the Hades series.
Honestly, Hades is like, it's just like Hollow Knight. It's a game that I've been wanting to play for so long, but I never had like a good time to do it. I think after Spooktober, we're gonna play Hades because it looks really awesome.
Game being released in 2020, it's a roguelike action game inspired from Greek mythology that sold millions of copies and won multiple Game of the Year awards for how they use the roguelike gameplay structure of having individual runs in order to push the story forward through multiple playthroughs. And honestly speaking, anybody who's played Hades before knows how easy it is to get invested in it and just accidentally end up dumping a ton of hours into it. So naturally, when the sequel entered early access back in May, people just went absolutely crazy for it too. Like, one of the most common things you hear—
It's kind of crazy that Hades 2 and Silksong released so closely apart if you think about it.
People talk about online as to what separates Supergiant Games from any other studio in the industry is that they say that the games released by them feel like they have heart.
So
you know, they feel like they've been polished to the max, where everything in the game just feels complete. You know, from the art style to the world building, the complex characters, like nothing about this game feels like it was rushed or half-assed just to meet a deadline. And from what I managed to read online, the developers at Supergiant Games actually have one of the best working conditions out there because they've had so many successful releases in the past. So that way the company doesn't have to deal with—
Finally, the game devs getting paid properly and having good working conditions. We love to see it. We love to see it. Break the pattern, boys. Have a good job for once.
crunch time for the developers, and they actually have forced vacation days to stop them from overworking.
Forced vacation? That is, okay, that sounds really cool.
Treating your employees properly lets them work with passion and drive, and as a result of that, the community ends up getting amazing games. You know, maybe this next studio should really be taking notes.
That is one of the things that makes me the most an indie game enjoyer, because they just feel like so much, they just feel like they have so much more love and effort and like attention to the little details and the little things that make the game special than AAA games. The last stream, we played a new indie horror game that just released a couple of days ago called Karimata, and it was so cool. It had such a cool art style. You know, you can just feel that the developer actually cared about what they were doing. It's really nice.
Two completely different realities, because the studio is called Mountains, and it's responsible for an adorable and very heartwarming game
Wait, I thought people liked that game a lot. Are the developers bad?
called Florence, which is an interactive novel filled with a bunch of little mini games inside of it. And it's about a 25-year-old girl who falls in love and dreams about following her passion. Right? Sounds adorable. It's a quick little 30-minute experience that you can get on Steam for only $6. That's even won awards for Best Mobile Game too.
Wait, it's going good so far. What? Oh no, how are they gonna f this up?
There's a problem with that apparently, because while this adorable and cute little game was being developed, there was actually a lot of chaos and harassment happening inside the studio at Mountains.
Oh,
and a lot of it was actually coming from the very top of the mountain by the creative lead and founder of the studio called Ken Wong.
Oh,
One of the lead developers for
God.
Florence came out with a statement online talking about how Ken Wong was controlling and abusive at the studio, and a lot of the times would just undermine other people's mental health struggles. He stated that his body would literally just stop working because he couldn't handle the daily abuse he received from
my
Ken, and it got to the
God.
point of depression where this lead developer was actually considering uninstalling IRL. Another staff member at Mountains also described Ken Wong as being a cruel person in a position of power who liked to make other people feel bad to make himself feel better.
There's always one person to f everything up. It's always one fucking guy.
Ken was practically the face of the company because of his recognition on his previous work on Monument Valley. Well, it's not like you could just bring up the issue with the boss. You know, he was the boss. Like, imagine trying to work on a soft and beautiful, cozy video game while having to put up with these horrible conditions every single day. Like, it just sounds absolutely terrible. But when the story actually managed to get some traction online, Ken did issue a public apology for his behavior with the other staff members at Mountain Studio.
I feel very fortunate that I have the opportunity to work alongside such a talented and caring team. Even after all the mistakes I've made, I'm incredibly grateful to have been given the chance to learn and do better. So, no consequences. It just sounds like he's not gonna get any sort of consequence for that. Wow, man, that was a great apology. I'm so happy that you said that you're gonna do better. Definitely trust you. You're definitely a trustworthy person. Thank you so much for that statement. I'm so glad that you got the consequences of having a couple of people be mad at you, but no, nothing bad happened to your job. Wow.
And they even had to implement a rule inside the studio where people were just outright allowed to deny one-on-one meetings with him if they didn't feel like they were being treated right.
That is crazy. Imagine being such a piece of shit that you're like a leader of the company and there's a whole rule that people cannot talk to you if they want to. Wow, wow.
For the one indie company that people to this day still debate on whether it really is indie or not because it doesn't really fit the image of what you think about when you think about indie studio, but regardless of what people see it as, you can't deny that Larian Studios is one of the most loved studios out there that's won multiple awards and nominations.
Yeah, they're kind of like in that gray area where you don't know if they count as indie, not India. What? You don't know if they count as indie. You know, it's kind of like the team behind Claire Obscure, where it's like they're not AAA, but they're also not, you know, like just a regular indie. I think they created a whole new term. I think it's called like AA.
A3 specifically, but they're also famously known for their previous games like the Divinity series. And Larian Studios has built a lot of the goodwill that they have with the community.
I still need to play Baldur's Gate on stream. It would be so cool. We could customize the PP size.
Just through like the sheer quality that their games have that really helps people just connect with them better. I think a lot of it just has to do with how, despite the fact that Larian Studios is technically an independent developer who's not really controlled by any publisher, they still have access to that AAA budget because of how successful they've been throughout the years, and as a result of all that budget that they have for their games, usually they can aim pretty high with the scope of what they're working on.
Indie titles with AAA budget usually generate some incredible games.
And here's like the best example of how the fans feel about Larian Studios. Larian does not promise anything it cannot do, and they have never failed to deliver a game. They won't be releasing a game that's a buggy mess. This is not my first rodeo with them.
That should be like the bare minimum. In this economy, you know, in the way that we are right now, is like above and beyond, you know, it's like a surprising thing that a developer will not release an unfinished game nowadays, but it's still cool.
At Larian, whether it's talking to the fans online or accepting an award on stage, they always seem to have a sense of gratitude towards their audience that, you know, you really just don't see in too many studios out there. Because usually we see things from the other perspective, you know, usually we see us thanking the developers for all their hard work, but I suppose seeing that level of kindness come from them really just earns them a lot of good points with the community, and maybe that's why people love them so much.
Yeah, it's that thing that that I told you guys, like, if you want people to care about you, you have to care about them. You know, if you want people to appreciate what you do for them, you need to appreciate them first.
All right, and this next one really isn't a studio per se, since it's just like one developer, but it's still worth mentioning because of the amount of controversy that they've had over the years. We have to talk about Wulf and the game called Cube World, which a lot of people call the most disappointing indie release of all time. You see, when Cube World was first shown off,
that is a very big title. Holy shit.
Back in 2011, it caught a lot of people's attention pretty quickly because the game was selling the idea of exploring a procedurally generated world with RPG elements, and overall it was looking like it was going to be a really fun game to play. A lot of people got hyped up and started following Wulf's development journey, and those suspicions would later be confirmed when Wulf initially released an alpha back in 2013 that got overwhelmingly positive feedback from the community. But then problems started arising during the game's development, where Wulf would just go absolutely silent on social media for months at a time, even for years at certain points, and it got to the point where people thought that the game was just being abandoned. So naturally, a lot of the fans were left feeling disappointed, but it wasn't until 6 years later, in 2019, that Wulf just decided to randomly come back and announce that Cube World was almost ready, and it was going to get an official release on
I was about to say, so it has a good ending? Mixed reviews is never a good sign.
Steam. So at that point, hopes were high once again. But what ended up happening is that when people actually got the chance to play this official Cube World that had been hyped up for so many years, well, they realized that the final release was way different from the alpha version that people originally loved, and the game was missing a lot of features that were either promised or just outright already present in the alpha. So not only did the official release feel incomplete, it was actually worse than what the fans originally got all the way back in 2013.
No.
So naturally, it left a lot of people feeling scammed when they bought Cube World, and, you know, to make matters worse, shortly after Cube World's official release, Wulf would then again, you know, go silent on social media. So it's almost like if he just wanted to release the game just to say that he did it and people would stop bugging him and just be able to move on afterwards. So because of all of that, the fans who were initially super hyped up and hopeful for Wulf were just left with a sour taste on their mouths because
this could be one of the cases that I mentioned earlier of you being very ambitious and then not being able to deliver on the promises that you made to people.
Of all the money they spent on Cube World. And to pour a little bit more salt in the wound, now Wulf in 2023 announced Cube World Omega, which is a completely new project, and now people who were originally scammed or ripped off, whatever you want to call it, by the original Cube World are wondering like, hey, is this going to be another Cube World episode? Is this going to be, do I have to pay for this?
I'm a little bit mean in the sense that if I see a developer or like a company doing some bullshit once, I usually lose my trust in them. If you can't release a proper game, I kind of lose trust in you, you know? I would only change my mind if I see a lot of other people that are willing to trust a scammer saying that they actually did change and this one is actually so much better.
Again, after I supported you with the original Cube World, nobody really knows. But all I know is that a lot of the goodwill that Wulf had with his community has now been basically thrown out the window at this point.
That was a cool video. That was a cool video. I like these kinds of videos that are like just talking about a random topic and going in depth into it. We might do some more reactions in this style in the future if you guys enjoyed it.